Let's talk about a mental habit that so many of us fall into. It's this destructive assumption that we know exactly what other people are thinking, especially what they're thinking about us. We're going to get straight into how to dismantle what's called mind-reading anxiety.
You know that feeling, don't you? That sudden gut-wrenching certainty that you're being judged or you just said the absolute wrong thing. It's like you've somehow hacked into their brain and, well, the news is never good.
Maybe it sounds a little something like this. You trip over a word and your mind doesn't just register a small mistake. No, it writes a whole screenplay about it.
Or maybe their tone of voice shifts just a tiny bit and bam, you're convinced. You know you've annoyed.
Or you make one small error at work and your brain immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion. The damage is done. It's permanent. These thoughts feel like solid facts, right? But what if they're not? What if they're just stories?
And that really gets us to the heart of the problem here. We can call it the mind-reading trap. It's like being stuck in an internal echo chamber where your own anxieties are just bouncing off the walls, getting louder and louder until they sound like the absolute truth.
So what exactly is mind-reading anxiety? Well, to put it simply, it's when you believe that your internal story about what someone else is thinking is a hard fact, and not just what it is, your interpretation. Your anxious brain is a master storyteller, and it's really good at making its fictions feel like truths. And this is pretty much how that trap works. It all starts with just one little assumption. Then your mind hits replay over and over and over again. And while this is happening, it's actively blocking out any new information that might challenge that initial thought. So your feeling of certainty grows, not because you have more evidence, but just from sheer repetition.
Now, this next part is so important because if you've ever been through this, you know it doesn't feel like you're just making things up. It feels like a genuine perception, a gut feeling, this powerful intuition. So why on earth is it so convincing?
And this, right here, is the heart of the illusion. That feeling of knowing. It's not some kind of superpower. Almost all the time, it's a projection. You're basically taking your own fears, your own insecurities, and you're casting them onto somebody else like a movie projector.
See, our anxious brain is incredibly fast at filling in any gaps in information. And it pulls from this deep well of stuff, our past experiences, our fear of being rejected, old emotional memories, and it just instantly creates a story. It's not actually seeing the present moment for what it is. It's using the past to write a really negative story about the future.
Okay, so that leads us right to what we can call the projection error. This is that critical mistake we make when we take a totally simple behavior and we load it up with this heavy, negative meaning that, frankly, we've just invented.
Just look at these examples. They're perfect. Someone crosses their arms. That's it. It's a neutral behavior. But the anxious story is, they're closed off to me. Or someone pauses for a second before they reply. The story? Oh no, I said something wrong. They glance away, and it instantly becomes, they don't like me. In every single one of these, the behavior is neutral. The story we attach to it, though, that's personal, and it's always negative.
Here's the difference in the simplest terms possible. The observation, the actual fact, is they yawned. The interpretation is the story we tack on. They're bored, and it's my fault. See that? That second part isn't a fact. It's a narrative we just created out of thin air.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the problem, but how do we actually fix it? This is where, believe it or not, ancient Stoic philosophy gives us this amazing practical toolkit that we can use to break the cycle.
The Stoics were all about mental discipline, and we can boil down their wisdom into this simple three-step evidence test. First, you just pause, stop. You create a little bit of space between the thought and your automatic belief in it. Just tell yourself, this is just a thought. Second, you separate. Pull apart the raw data. What did you actually see or hear from the story you put on top of it? And finally, you test that story. So how do you test it? By asking yourself some brutally honest questions, like, what direct, observable evidence do I have for this thought? Is there any evidence at all that might contradict it? And this is a big one. What giant assumptions am I making to arrive at this negative conclusion? You'll find that most mind reading just completely falls apart under that kind of questioning. Now, this next part might sound a little weird at first, but stick with me. The goal here isn't to prove your anxiety wrong and find the right answer. The real goal is to get comfortable with not knowing. It's all about letting go of this illusion that we can control what other people think.
I absolutely love this idea. We tend to think that any certainty, even negative certainty like, I know for a fact they dislike me, is better than not knowing. But that's a total trap. The Stoics knew that real mental freedom comes from being able to say, I don't know, instead of clinging to a story that's probably false and is definitely causing you pain.
And you know what? Here's another liberating truth for you. It's called the social spotlight illusion. Our anxiety makes us feel like we're on a stage 24/7 with a bright spotlight on us. But the reality is, most people are the main character in their own movie. They are way more worried about their own internal drama than they are about yours. And realizing that isn't an insult, it's an incredible relief. So, let's wrap all this up into a simple, actionable tool that you can use the very next time you feel that familiar dread of mind-reading anxiety start to creep in. Call this your micro reset. First, just name what you're doing. Okay, I'm mind-reading again. Second, state the objective fact and only the fact. They looked at their phone while I was talking. Third, admit the truth. I don't actually know what they're thinking. And fourth, just redirect your attention. Put your focus back on what you were doing. This simple little sequence can break the anxiety's spell.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. True mental clarity, real peace, it doesn't come from getting better at guessing what's going on in other people's heads. It comes from getting better at managing and questioning and governing your own mind.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. What if the source of all this anxiety isn't really about what other people think at all? What if it's about your own unquestioning belief in your own unconfirmed stories? Because challenging those stories, that's where the real work and the real freedom truly begins.